This title isn't clickbait, hear me out. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was a show cut down in its prime, running for a woefully short 2 seasons. Check out the video that's on screen now for an introduction to this show if you don't know what I'm talking about, because that's not really the purpose of this video. Instead, I'm going to be talking about this cancellation, and how there's a chance you and I can help bring this show back, nearly 10 years on. But to understand the possible route Earth's Mightiest Heroes may have back to airtime, we need to understand what happened to it in the first place. So grab your coloured chinos, flannel shirts and two-door Cinema Club CDs, because we're heading back to the early 2010s. We don't know the precise reasons behind everything that happened at the end of this show's run, but common speculation is that Jeff Loeb and the higher-ups at Marvel Television wanted a show in the same style and continuity as the recently premiered Ultimate Spider-Man, with MCU-style costumes for brand cohesion. This show would eventually be Avengers Assemble, a quasi-successor but not really to Earth's Mightiest Heroes. But even before Earth's Mightiest Heroes wrapped up, the creative hands the show was in were already changing, with the creators having less influence on the second half of Season 2, beginning to be replaced by Man of Action, the writing team which would run Assemble. The result of this is visible in episodes like Powerless, which I recently discussed. Apparently the idea was originally for an episode focusing more on Ms. Marvel and Hawkeye, but when Man of Action got their grubby little mittens on the project, it got boiled down into a focus on the traditional Big Three. That is, Iron Man, Captain America and Thor. I still think this episode works really well, and I'm still very happy with the Season 2 we eventually got, but I think it's fair to say things would have ended more gracefully if it had been up to Yost and Fine. And after a bit of a rushed finale, Season 2 wrapped up, the show was cancelled, and that was that. But a lot has changed since 2013, particularly with regard to Earth's Mightiest Heroes. The show is available in most territories on the Disney Plus streaming platform, and this wider availability has given the show a new viewership, and maybe a new lease on life. I've made quite a few videos on this show in the past few months, and you can see those by opening up the playlist on screen now. But the interesting thing is that in the comment section of these videos, there's 2 main camps of viewers. The long-time fans who watched EMH when they were young, or younger, and there's also a pretty big contingent of viewers who are just now watching the show for the first time, or started in the past year or so thanks to Disney+. So we're in a pretty unique position right now. I think we're seeing the most interest, the most hype around this show and these characters at the moment that we have since it was on air. And this hype has transformed what had previously been isolated appreciation for the show, lamenting its premature end, to an actual online campaign for a genuine revival. Whole communities have sprung up around this very cause, and I was informed in a comment section a few weeks ago of a movement hoping to get various hashtags like #SaveTheYostverse or #RestoredYostverse trending on Twitter on October 20th. This isn't the only prong of the movement. There's various petitions that have been created over the years, and nowadays pretty much anywhere you look on a social media platform, wherever Marvel is mentioned, someone somewhere is bringing up Earth's Mightiest Heroes. This might not sound like much, but a few similar properties have been revived in recent years. Young Justice was resurrected for a 3rd season a few years after it stopped airing, and it even came back again for a 4th. Or more recently, Star Wars' Clone Wars series was revived for a 7th and final season after 7 years off the air, by Disney as a Disney Plus exclusive. That's similar to what people are hoping for with Earth's Mightiest Heroes. You might point out that Star Wars were more inclined to revive Clone Wars because such a revival would help their burgeoning TV project, filling out the lineup along with The Mandalorian as a method of testing the waters before jumping fully in with new similar content like The Bad Batch. Yes, that's a fair point, but there might well be a similar thing happening with Marvel. In the wake of What If's success, there have been some reports that Marvel is hoping to launch an MCU or MCU-adjacent animation arm. Given the way Marvel Studios are diving into the multiverse, visible in What If, Loki, and some of the upcoming movies more than likely, Earth's Mightiest Heroes could be a pretty good candidate to launch this little corner of the Marvel multiverse. And the heavily rumoured appearance of Daredevil in upcoming MCU projects like Spider-Man No Way Home, Hawkeye and Echo indicates that Marvel is vulnerable to fan pressure and campaigns. There's a reason it's Daredevil who seems to be reappearing first, not any of the other Defenders, and that reason is the Save Daredevil campaign, which has been burning brightly ever since that show's cancellation. Don't even get me started on that whole can of worms. So the key takeaway is that A, nowadays there is precedent for shows being revived years after cancellation, given enough fan support, and B, Marvel listens in some capacity to fan movements. But that isn't enough to guarantee that Earth's Mightiest Heroes comes back. Of course it isn't. I think there is enough information, though, to say that the revival of Earth's Mightiest Heroes is a possibility. I should quickly note that this movement, or at least certain arms of it, aren't campaigning merely for the return of Earth's Mightiest Heroes. They're also campaigning for the restoration of the Yostverse. Check out the video linked on screen now if you don't know what that is, but essentially the semi-related shows Wolverine and the X-Men and Spectacular Spider-Man are also in the crosshairs for this resurrection movement. I think that's possible too, if somewhat less likely, and I am hoping for it. That being said, I think the most likely way we'd see those shows back, particularly Wolverine and the X-Men, is after a single show like Earth's Mightiest Heroes has been brought back and been a success. So if I'm focusing overly on that show in this video, it's not because I don't want these shows back too. It's just because I think it's likely that an Earth's Mightiest Heroes revival would be a necessary precondition for a wider return of the Yostverse. But we've established that all of this is at the very least possible. Now we must shift our focus to how we, as internet nobodies, can maximise that possibility. And I think this upcoming digital event is the best bet we have to do this, at least at the moment. So here are the details of how you can help save this show. Tweet about Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes or Spectacular Spider-Man or Wolverine and the X-Men or the Yostverse in general on October 20th. That's just under a week from now. And most importantly, include one or more of these hashtags. Hashtag Save Avengers EMH, hashtag Save Spectacular Spider-Man, hashtag Save WATXM, hashtag Save the Yostverse, or hashtag Restore the Yostverse, or hashtag Bring Back EMH. There's a lot of variant hashtags floating around, but I think these are the main ones. So yeah, tweet. That's what we can do to make it slightly more likely that we see a third season of this show. But what would a third season look like? Luckily, we already have some idea of this. First of all, if any of you have seen the show's second season, you'll know that the Surtur storyline was left dangling, like a wet sock in the wind, so it's a safe bet that at least part of season 3 would have resolved this story. But we don't have to bet. Last year, for the 10th anniversary of the show, story editor Christopher Yost tweeted out some real bombshells, detailing what we could have seen from a third season. In a nutshell, as any of the 20 or so news articles written about Yost's tweets would tell you, it's a season about magic and mutants, introducing characters like the X-Men, Doctor Strange, Nightmare, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, and many others besides. The latter two would have become core Avengers members, like they did in the team's early comic history. Yost and Fine have spoken previously about how they always wanted to find somewhere in the show's existing run to insert these characters, so I think it's safe to say that in a hypothetical third season, they'd get their share of the limelight. Yost gave us more information than this, however, including the start of a proposed script for the season premiere, in which part of the team are captured by dark magic, and the others, led by Wasp, have to seek supernatural aid. This, along with everything else Season 3 related I'm talking about, will be linked in the description. In addition though, Yost also released an outline of the rest of the season, with episode titles and brief synopses for all 26 hypothetical episodes. I won't go through all of these, but I'll put them on screen now, and I encourage you to take a bit of time reading them through. But some of the highlights include the Avengers coming up against Magneto and the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Iron Man and Doctor Doom being stuck in a medieval past, by Wasp teams up with one of my all-time favourite Marvel characters, Black Knight. We would have seen the reappearance of Wonder Man, who would have completed his long redemption arc and joined the Avengers. And about halfway through the season, we would have seen Ragnarok play out. This would have resulted, like the Siege storyline in the comic books, in Asgard being brought down to Earth, and from then, the major story of the remaining episodes involves introducing the X-Men, bringing them into contact and conflict with the Avengers, and eventually bringing the Phoenix into play. The season ends though with Scarlet Witch unleashing some great power, the details of which are tantalizingly slim. If I had to guess, then I'd say this would have led into an adaptation of either the Onslaught and Heroes Reborn storyline, or maybe House of M. But whatever it might have led to, it would undoubtedly have been a thrilling conclusion to an equally thrilling season. But with regard to these Season 3 plans, there are two main things to note. First, these are rough ideas of Yost's, with Josh Fine admitting they've not really talked about any of them as a creative team. So while they sound great, it may well be that even if the show is revived, the third season plays out differently. Second, while as of now Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes and Wolverine and the X-Men are officially in the same continuity, it's been suggested that had Earth's Mightiest Heroes ran for this third mutant-filled season, these continuities would have diverged, and we would have seen an X-Men world which wouldn't necessarily have lined up with what we'd seen in Wolverine and the X-Men. Now, hypothetically, I think there's a chance that this would be different if Earth's Mightiest Heroes were to be revived alongside a wider Yostverse. After all, if Marvel Studios were to take a punt on reviving an old semi-connected universe, I think it's likely that they'd want to play up the connections as much as they could. Maybe, one day, we'll see the rest of these stories in glorious, glorious Technicolor. It's exciting just to think about, but this only has a chance of happening if we all band together and support this revival movement and the trend event. So the most important thing you can do to help this show see new light is join me and hundreds, if not thousands of other fans on October 20th tweeting #SaveTheYostverse. The second most important thing you can do is to tell someone else about this and have them tweet too. If you've got friends who watched these shows back in the day, tell them about the movement and the trend event. If you've got friends who like similar shows but never watched any of these, there's still time. Get them to start Earth's Mightiest Heroes or any of the others, then get them tweeting too. Tell them the hashtags, or if you can't remember them, feel free to share this video around. Or don't, I'm not asking you to shill my content, I'm just trying to stress that we need to spread the word. So I'll be tweeting on the 20th, and I hope you will too. Until then, I've got plenty of other videos on Earth's Mightiest Heroes you can watch, and as a result of the community poll I ran the other day, I'll be starting to cover Spectacular Spider-Man soon enough. I've also got a video on WandaVision coming out sometime soon that I am particularly proud of, and I'm really looking forward to putting it out. So tell your friends about the 20th, and if you like this sort of content, maybe consider liking and subscribing. I don't know, just a suggestion. Anyway, that's it from me for now. See you soon.